Hi, I'm Richard, Trails of the City, Footprints of London and Other Places History Tour Guide, and welcome to the 8th and final Trails Live History Cast, my series of online Facebook talks during the coronavirus pandemic lockdown, and in which I've been featuring various historic Londoners that I've included on walks I've done over the years. And today's character, as you can see, is Ira Aldridge, great 19th century Shakespearean actor, first American actor to make it big in Europe, and the first black actor to play Othello in London's West End. And I will feature Aldridge in an up-and-coming walk that's all ready to do, pandemic lockdown notwithstanding, in my own local area here in Crystal Palace, because Aldridge moved into a house just a few doors away from me in Hamlet Road. And I started this series with one of the 100 Great Black Britons, and so it's perhaps appropriate to end it with another. And Aldridge was born in New York in 1807. His father was a street seller and lay preacher. And Aldridge went to a New York African Free School, part of a network of schools set up by anti-slavery campaigners. And Aldridge was expected by the family to go into the church. But as a teenager, he sees some of the theatrical productions of William Brown's African Grove Theatre, the very first African-American theatre, and he gets some parts, and he's stage struck. He's found his passion, but the theatre is subject to some vile local racist abuse, with gangs of thugs attacking actors, and Aldridge decides if he's going to pursue a career in acting that he would be better off doing it elsewhere. And so in 1824, at the age of 17, he works his passage as a steward on a ship to Liverpool and comes to London. And his first show is at the Royalty Theatre, which was based in Whitechapel in the East End of London, in which he appears as Othello, still only at the age of 17. His next play is as Orinoco, a play about an African prince who's tricked into slavery, suffers for the love of a white woman, which is put on at the Coburg Theatre, these days called the Old Vic in Waterloo. And now, at the time, there was a rising fad in London for racial spoofs. There was a comedian called Matthew White who would put on performances of impersonating black African diction and style, mocking the aspirations of black actors. This inspires and morphs into minstrel shows, and so many in early audiences coming to see Aldridge may have been expecting a comedy and to laugh. But as far as we know, they were generally impressed and surprised by the serious, controlled performance of Aldridge, though that the critics didn't like it at all and commented on Aldridge's poor pronunciation, quote, due to the poor shape of his lips. Well, due to similar adverse, racist, critical comments in the capital, Aldridge found it very difficult to get parts in London and decides to plough his furrow in the provinces, and very successfully, often playing to full houses and to great reviews, playing noble Africans in other Shakespearean plays and black slaves. And then in 1833, his big chance comes when Edmund Kean, the great English tragedian, takes gravely ill while playing Othello at the Covent Garden Theatre. And Kean is well aware of Aldridge and very impressed by his work and recommends that he take over from him. And audiences are impressed by Othello, but the critics again have it in for him. Indeed, there is clearly a critical conspiracy campaign against him. The Figaro in London, a social features journal, makes no bones about it and writes explicitly that they wanted to force him to find, in the capacity of footman or street sweeper, that level for which his colour appears to have rendered him peculiarly qualified. This was the same year, in 1833, that legislation was going through Parliament to abolish the slave trade. What rank hypocrisy and contradiction! Well, so Aldrich then takes refuge again into the provinces, equally successfully as he did before, including reviews such as one in a Hull paper describing one particular performance of Othello that he gave, such as can be equalled by very few of the present day. In 1835, he devises his own solo show, which involves lectures on drama, recitations of Shakespeare, and a commentary on racism. He wasn't averse to a bit of self-aggrandizement and self-legend making, was Aldrich. He branded himself as an African prince to help him obtain access into society circles, and also as the Black Roscius, referring to a mythical Roman actor. We also know that he developed acts parodying his racist parodists, which I've already talked about, something I don't know, which I think today that black performers generally would think not particularly desirable, a bit in the categorization of laughing it off. From the 1850s, he launches a tour throughout Europe into Belgium, Prussia, Austria, Hungary, Sweden, and to great success. Many people in our outlying areas would have been seeing a black actor for the first time, and he was bringing Shakespeare to many places, for example the Russian provinces, for the first time, and to a great success, honoured and receiving adulations in many countries. For example, he received the Austrian Grand Order of Leopold, amongst others. But it was in 1861, at the height of his international fame and success, that he buys the villa just a few doors down from me at number 5 Hamlet Road, in an area up and coming, getting very fashionable due to the opening of the Crystal Palace Exhibition Centre just up the road. And in 1863 he becomes a naturalised Brit, but it's sadly also where his first wife dies, but in the area where he actually marries his second wife a few years later in 1865, a Swedish woman, Amanda von Brandt, who styles herself as a Swedish countess. Just imagine an African prince and a Swedish countess. But it's sad to say that they didn't have many years to enjoy their marriage, and for much of that time he was out on tour and died while touring in Lodz in Poland. Well, Aldrich's blue plaque was unveiled in 2007 on the bicentenary of his birth and during Black History Month. It's difficult to underestimate, I think, the extent of Aldrich's international success and adulation, especially the barriers that he broke down as a black actor, though sadly many historians have commented that he failed to blaze a trail of many other like actors following in his wake, and that he was looked upon in such a racist and critical way in London, and also that he never found fame in his native country, in America. In fact, he was planning a 100-date tour of the States while he was on the tour in which he died. but many subsequent black American theatre companies named their company in honour of him into the 20th century. And I think it's an indication of his recently rising recognition that there was a theatre biopic put on about him by the husband and wife couple Adrian Lester and Lolita Chakrabarty, and also in the recent British Library Shakespeare anniversary show, Shakespeare in 10 Acts, that Aldrich was afforded a whole room just dedicated to him. And I think those couple of things indicate that there is a rising recognition today of his importance and greatness. Well, thanks very much, everyone, again and finally, for listening. I hope that was interesting and entertaining. And thanks to those that have listened throughout the series. That's the last one I'll do in this series. Perhaps I'll have a think if I'm going to do some other social media items while the lockdown persists for us tour guides. Until then, or until I can actually get out on the streets or into a bus or coach and actually do any guiding, stay safe, everyone, and stay safe and stay well. But it's bye bye from me. Bye bye.